Ladies and gentlemen, my name is John, and this is the Marketplace Mavericks, and let's get into it this week. This week, we are doing a little update. It is just me, solo, mano y a mano, nobody else, no guest, no nothing. I am just giving you guys an update on my first year selling wholesale. So, a little backstory. We've gotten, I've told you guys before, I started selling in January of 2025. Hopped on the OA thing to learn the ropes, hit that for about 6 months, and then I made the switch to wholesale. So we have been doing wholesale now for exactly 1 year. I started in August, so just shy of a year. And I got a whole list of do's and don'ts in the wholesale world of what I learned. I did some things really, really well my first year, and I did some really stupid things. So we're going to dig into it today and kind of, if you're out there thinking about going into wholesale and wondering if it's worth it, I 100% think it's worth it. Hats off to the OA guys for what they do in the massive systems they put in place with OA. But to be honest with you, I wasn't any good at it. But what I was really good at is wholesale. So first off, as everybody knows, when I started doing this has been my full-time job, and I've done nothing else but this for the past year and a half. So I have learned a lot. And when I got into wholesale, I really knew, I said, I got like 6 months to make this work until I got to start giving myself a paycheck. And at the time, I had scaled OA to about 40K, close to 50, but between 40 and 50K. It was right before Q4. Everyone was talking about ramping up for Q4, everything that can Q4 be. And something inside of me said, John, forget about Q4. It's not what your goal is overall. Your goal is to build a sustainable business through the brand direct. Don't do what everybody else is doing and saying, hey, I'll look into it in January. I'll look into it now. If you want to do it, dive into it and do it. So that's what I did. And a friend of mine, a mentor of mine actually, he told me what he did. He did 90 days, 100 to 150 calls per week, Monday through Friday. And I'm going to do that for 90 straight days. And at the end of it, if I don't see a viable path in this business, it's time for me to stop and go do something else. Because Amazon for me was never, ever going to be a side hustle. And if I'm going to be completely honest with you guys, OA, Amazon in general, if you're looking for a side hustle, I don't think this is it. I just don't. I know some people will argue with that. I'm sure there are people out there that do it as a side hustle. For me, as a side hustle is something that you don't take your own capital out of your pocket and invest it. That is not a side hustle. A side hustle would be the Amazon influencer program, something like that, where, hey, you can make some money without having to invest your own money into it. So that being said, I dove in and I want to do 90 days. I learned how to source for wholesale, very similar to OA in some ways, completely different in other ways. I learned how to source. I dove into it. The number one do, have patience. I did not have enough patience in the beginning. I didn't want to see my orange bars go down, and don't pay attention to the orange bars. Don't set goals. You would think you want to come out and set goals for yourself. Don't. Set goals. Your goals are your calls, right? Your goals are how many calls you're making every single week, every single day, how much you're sourcing. That's your goal. I made the goal of I wanted to spend 10K in the first month. I wanted to get my first brand to purchase from in the first month. I set that goal. What did that do around the 15th, 16th of the month when I wasn't getting anywhere and a brand finally said, sure, we'll sell to you? I was so excited that the brand would sell to me. I didn't pay attention to some red flags. I didn't pay attention to that it was a seasonal product. I did not pay attention to they did not limit their Amazon sellers. They did not have map pricing. They did not have a lot of protections. And what did I do anyways? I bought it. And they had an MLQ, which is a minimum order. I ate it and got that. By the time the product got to Amazon, I think 10 other sellers had hopped on and the price had tanked almost to to the point where I was losing money. I had to sit on that product for the next 6 months. It ate my capital, and it taught me a really good lesson. It taught me that if the math isn't mathing and the red flags are there, just because they say you can purchase for them does not mean you should purchase from them. So it may take you 60 days to get your first deal, to get your first profitable item, or it could take you less, but make the goal the effort. Make the goal making the phone calls. The money will come, right? Something else. Don't launch a product on Amazon, guys. It's not smart. There are guys that launch products on Amazon, and they do really well. They've been in the business for a couple of years. They've already scaled to where they want to scale to, and they have the capital to do that. It sounds really nice. And when I got my VA, and my VA is a rock star. She really trained me in a lot of ways. She was able to build listings. She was able to edit photos. She was able to optimize listings. She gave me a ton of selling power for me to go out and be able to promise things to brands that I can follow through with. A fantastic asset. Well, I came across a brand, actually 3 brands that were not on Amazon and wanted to launch on Amazon. 2 out of the 3 brands were a complete disaster, and I lost probably close to $10,000 and having to send everything to liquidation. One of the other brands is actually doing pretty well, but that was luck. It is real simple, guys. You can look up on Amazon. If a brand is not getting 500 to 1,000 organic searches per month, you don't even look at it. Now, at the time, I didn't know what that meant. Going back and looking back on it, the one brand that did do well, 80,000 Instagram followers, another huge TikTok following. It had over 500 specific organic searches for the brand and some of their products. So there was a base there. Amazon does not create need. It fills need. You need to create the need. The brand needs to create the need, and then you put it on Amazon. Unless you're really doing private label, and that's a whole new ballgame. And what I was doing was private label for the most part. So I really was excited. Now, did I learn a lot with building listings, seeing how all the process goes? Absolutely, I did. I learned a bunch, and I'm doing well with one of them. It did not outweigh the fact that it didn't with the other 2. And I did that because I wasn't patient. It's not very hard to close a brand that's not on Amazon. But 9 times out of 10, that brand isn't going to be a brand that you want to launch on Amazon. That is something, if you really like doing that, down the line, I like doing it. I had a good time doing it. Down the line, would I do it again? Absolutely. In another year or 2, right? Not now. So that is another lesson with patience, is that if you don't have it, you're going to make mistakes. The other thing is staying organized. What I would do in the beginning, possibly if you want to do the 90 day kind of blitz, I didn't do it in the beginning, not the end of the world. I have a CRM. The CRM was fantastic. Now my CRM connects to my phone. It will take every single phone call that I make to every brand or distributor I make. And when that brand or calls me or I call the brand, single phone call has an AI transcript and summarized for me. Because let me tell you guys, this business is about creating relationships and solving problems. Those are the 2 things that is going to get you far. I wanted to say value, right? You always want to show a brand value, which you do. I fell into the trap of showing a brand value that didn't want to be shown value. They don't want to be given the whole spiel of optimizing your listings, advertising. You know what brands want that are already selling on Amazon? If you ask them what their issues are with Amazon, I can guarantee you they will tell you what those issues are. And when they tell you what those issues are, fix them. If you fix them, you will get the account. If you keep on fixing their problems and making life easier on them while you are purchasing their products, you are on the road to an exclusive. That is how you get there, because the 7 other sellers that were on the listing, they did not fix the problem that the brand had. Whoever fixes the problem is going to get the account, is going to get the exclusive. That doesn't mean that you can't show value. But the last thing you want to say to his brand is, I want to bring you value. I bring value, because let me tell you, every brand hears that, right? And that doesn't mean once you start working with a brand, you start purchasing with a brand, you want to tell them about how much you're spending on advertising, what you can do with their listings, what you can do with their conversion rate if you upload new pictures. You're going to get a chance to sell all of those things, but first, fix their problem that they have. Fix that problem, create a relationship with them, and then you can start to dictate, and they're going to listen to you when you tell them about how terrible their pictures are. But that first phone call, when you're talking to them and you haven't purchased from them and they have no interest in their pictures, there's no point in trying to convince them. You're not going to convince them. 3 months down the road, after you fix their map issues and everyone's abiding by their map now and you're selling the product for more, that is when you can have a conversation with the brand, is like, hey, I fixed this for you. Have you seen these other problems that you may not think are problems? I can guarantee you that that conversation, if you try to have it on day one or before you have spent money with the brand, compared to 3 months down the road, once you've grown a relationship, is like night and day. It is going to make a difference. So that's what I mean when I say creating relationships. I even had to go to the point, because I made so many phone calls, and that adding value is such a crutch of a term to use. I found myself using it way more than I thought I was, to the point where I had to put a sticky note on my computer screen to tell me to stop saying add value, because I realized I was saying it and I could almost feel the eye rolls coming from the brand, because that's exactly what everybody else is saying. They don't want to do the hard work of actually fixing a brand's problems. So there you go. There's our first couple months. Other do's. Do network. If you guys looked at my personal social media pages, I post probably 3 times a year. It's usually one around the holidays, one on the beach, and my kid's first day of school, and that's about it. So I am one of those people that is not a social media guy. And that's exactly what I said when I started to get into this business, was not a social media guy. Not a social media guy. Okay, what that makes you is a guy that's not going to get answers, a guy that is not going to have as much fun working when he doesn't have anybody to talk to. I come from Miles' program. He beats that drum constantly, and it's hard to listen to. And, I'm going to be honest right now, I am talking to you old people, meaning over 35, over 40 years old, because people in their 20s, nobody ever says I'm not a social media person. They're all social media people. But if you're getting into this business at the age I'm at, in your mid 40s, open your eyes a little bit and give it a try. It's awkward. It takes about 15 minutes per week. Take a picture, post it. Hey, look, cool. Go on X, post some of your packages. You will be absolutely amazed at how much information you can give just by doing 15 minutes a day and doing some networking, especially if you aren't doing any online groups. Me, I did some paid online groups. They worked for me. Some people don't need that. Some people don't want to pay for that. That's fine. There's so many free Discord groups and school groups and ways for you to network with other people, whether you're doing wholesale or you're doing online arbitrage. Network with people. And it's fun to work with people that you like hanging out with. So the networking is just massive. So you old people, stop saying I'm not a social media person and get into it's 2026. Become a social media person. Nobody else has to know. Nobody in my friends group even know that I have Instagram or X or that I do a podcast. They don't know. The podcast doesn't interest them. They wouldn't get, unless you're selling on Amazon or an e-commerce, my podcast isn't going to make any sense to anybody. Just like my social media doesn't. So the two don't touch each other. And it's a lot of fun. I get to bring on all these incredible people, and guess what I get? You get free sauce. I get to talk to these huge sellers and these guys that are masters at their craft. Yeah, I'm talking to them on the podcast. I'm also talking to them before the podcast and after the podcast about some of my stuff that I'm selling and the issues I'm having, and they're giving me real feedback and what they would do. It is invaluable, and I'm not paying for that. There's so much free stuff you can get out there in the world for this. So I definitely do is network. Find your own way to network. You don't have to start a podcast. You don't have to start online coaching. You don't have to do anything. Just start posting about it. Good things will come, I promise you. As far as sourcing, I get people all the time when they're starting in wholesale and they ask me like, hey, what brand do I go, what category do I go after? I'm not sure how I should, call, or sometimes there's too much preparation. So I'll kind of cut that in half for you. When you're sourcing, I am completely category agnostic. I do not care. You will fall into categories. Typically with wholesale, this isn't really a how-to video, but electronics, clothing, stuff like that, you kind of throw out. You're looking in automotive, you're looking in food, you're looking in science, you're looking in things like that, office products, you're looking at stuff like that. Be aware you're going to start to learn how to read listings. Be aware when you see, I feel like in the beginning, you're going to have a lot of luck in the food and grocery category. You're going to have luck with hot sauce companies, barbecue sauce companies, spice companies. These can be very good. They're a little easier to buy from. Be really careful when you buy from these brands. A lot of times they will be brand direct and you're getting it from the brand. The issue with these things is they are low priced and they are heavy and they are a lot of times glass. Those three things make it very difficult if the brand isn't prepping and shipping for you, which 9 times out of 10, they will not be, especially in the beginning. They tend to sell to a lot of people. When you go on listings and you see a listing and it may be doing 700 units a month, there's 10 people in the listing, half and half, FBA to FBM. Some of the FBA listers, you look and you see review counts in the 6 figures. Careful. Really pay attention. How even is that pricing? Those big sellers, a lot of times, they will hog the buy box. So even though that thing is selling a whole bunch a month, you don't get anything. I ran into that. You're also going to find that, sure, you can buy it for $5 and it's selling for $14.99 and you have a nice little profit in there. And then with wholesale, you're going to need to remember that shipping, not usually included. It's going to, with something like that, LTL, you're going to need prep. A lot of the grocery products, the money is in multi-packs. Multi-packs cost more to prep. If it's glass, little hot sauce bottles, you have to think about bubble wrapping. That's going to be an expense. So a lot of times, your prep and shipping costs can be almost just as expensive as what you bought the product for. And now, sure, that $14.99, you're squeezing like a 10% margin, but guess what? That $14.99, if you look at the Keep It chart, every time it goes up over 12 sellers, that $14.99 goes to $10.99. And now you are just trying to break even. And it's selling 800 a month. You're selling about 40 because those big sellers are taking it. This is not every listing, but these are the kind of things that a lot of times will happen when you're starting in wholesale. So I was running into a lot of that. I was getting stuff, it was selling, but in no way enough to have me start to replen it. There was really nothing I could do to get into the buy box. A lot of it is because these large sellers, even though that bottle of hot sauce only sells 700 a month, that seller that's got 125,000 reviews, he has, 1,200 in stock. So he just sits in that buy box. And these big whale sellers can do that because they know they're going to outstock everybody by so much that they just sit in the buy box. And then everybody else is just fighting for scraps. This does not happen on every listing, but be aware. So that is something to watch out for because the grocery is a category you're going to have luck with. And and this is a little bit because it has worked for me. My mentor told me, and this is a little bit of luck, but my mentor told me one night on a call, he was like, guys, don't be afraid to source high-priced items. I never really sourced high-priced items. I wasn't against them. I wasn't afraid of them. I don't know why. I just hadn't sourced them. I think I had some on my sheet. I just didn't do it. And we're talking like over $100. And so I was, and my mentor was saying like, hey, it doesn't hurt to buy 10 of a high price item and just see if it moves. A lot of times there's more margin in high price items. There is, as long as there's not returns, but returns can be an issue with them. And high-priced items are, in general, a lot with your catalog, if you start to scale with them, a lot less leakage, a lot less catalog, just maintenance in general. It's really easy to see all of your inventory come in and out. It doesn't take, 3,000 units of one unit to make a decent profit. It takes 20 or 30. So I took that. The next day, first phone call I made was to a brand that had about 4 or 5 ASINs selling around the $260 mark. That brand now became the foundation for my entire business. That brand, we will be doing in the coming months $150,000 to $180,000 a month, with under 1,000 units per month doing that. I can fit my entire business on 2 pallets. I could do almost 200K a month on 2 pallets with maybe 800 to 900 units. That is unbelievable. And I didn't realize it at the time, but now that I started to scale and I start to see that, I say to myself, I'm going to do all this money and it's not a whole lot of work. And I started becoming bullish on higher price items. I will not turn down. I have $15 products. I have $20 products. There is nothing wrong with them. I am in nowhere a place to stick up my nose to those type of things, but it sure made me aware of how easy things get when doing higher priced items. Now, the brand that I took on, I think I had a little bit of luck with that, a little bit of good timing, and I made a ton of phone calls, so I created some luck for myself. But it just goes to show that I had my mentor and a bunch of other people kind of tell me all the time, like, hey, it's just one, you just need that one brand, or you just need that one distributor. And I was always kind of like, yeah. And now I am 100% on board with, yeah, it is just one brand that can scale you. It truly, truly is. So that is something. Don't be afraid of high priced items. Don't be afraid of putting that keepa, that minimum at $50. If I was to do things over again, I would do that. That would be my first thing that I would say that I would do right away. Is I never would have bothered with those $12 to $15 grocery items. They did not work for me. Some of them worked, but I had to prep it myself. And then I really had to think, hey, I just took 6 hours to prep. And sure, I made ththese things. I had to do this with one brand that I was working with. Wasn't a brand, it was a distributor. And it was a distributor in my area. I drove up, I bought, I think, a half pallet the first time. I had to put it in my truck. And I was able to meet the distributor. It was a good learning experience. I got to create a relationship with him. And then I went home and I had to do a bunch of multi-packs with this stuff, bubble wrap. It was a lot of work. It was 6 hours of work. And I want to say the order was probably the order was, I think, around $3,000. I don't think the margin was going to be more than 10 to 12%. So I wasn't making a whole lot of money. And I was really happy to prep it all, get it out there. It was really my first wholesale product that was selling. And it was cool, but then I had to stop and think about it. And if I was to send all of that to a prep center, it would have been an LTL to the prep center, because these were all glass bottles and it's heavy. And then the prep center would have prepped. And once I added those fees in, I was not making money. It was 0% margin. And that was if prices didn't move. All those prices got to do is fluctuate $1, and you go from making money to making nothing. So I had to have a real talk with myself and said, wait, you're doing this to make more time for yourself. Prepping is going to take away time from sourcing and everything else, or it's not how I want to spend a Friday night in my garage prepping. So I had to kind of make the decision and take a step back and say, I was profitable with this, but I want to buy 2 pallets of this stuff, 3 pallets of this stuff in order to make it really worth my while. And once it went to the prep center and it was prepped, I wasn't profitable anymore, so I couldn't replen it. So it was fine to do once, because who knows, maybe the velocity was great, but in the big picture, I probably, for my business model, I never should have made that purchase in the first place. But that's how I would want other people to learn. That wasn't a mistake what I did. That was me learning without losing money and actually being profitable, that, hey, the juice wasn't worth the squeeze on something like that. It just wasn't. And that's why I didn't replan it. So that is something for you guys to think about when you're doing things like, hey, does this have room to scale? We all might prep in the beginning. I'll still prep some stuff if it's just a test order, but you have to think long term. Hey, am I prepping this because I'm just testing it out, or am I prepping this in order to be profitable? If you're prepping something in order to be profitable, what are you doing? That's what you got to think about. What are you doing? Because all that's going to do is create more work. Because if you want to replen that with 4 pallets, well, now what are you going to do? 4 pallets come to your house? Maybe, but now you're going to do all that work. And for what, when you're doing $13 items. There's not enough profit in those. So that's a little something to think about. But all in all, I did my 90 days. I popped my head up out of my sand and I said, I got a business. And I am now a year into this. I would say a goal for the first year is, if you could, would be to find that foundation brand, right? I found that foundation brand that is going to allow me to get a little bit more picky about who I purchase from, because the bills are paid from one brand plus. And that's where you want to start to rinse and repeat and stack. Now I can go back in source, and now I'm stacking on that foundation that I made my first year. I got some mistakes out of the way. I took some losses, and I took some really big wins. And what I did find out was that there is a light at the end of the tunnel with selling wholesale, especially brand direct, where you're going to buy your time back. I'm not there yet, but in another year or 2 years, I am going to be there. And that's the goal. And then you can move on and start to do something else, or whatever your goals are that you want to do. For me, I'm not 22 years old. I don't want to go out and start an online coaching program. I don't want to go start another side hustle. I don't want to go start selling on Walmart. I'm not interested in that. I want to curate a catalog of brand direct exclusive partnerships where I'm not really worried about a brand just dropping me for no reason, or I'm not worried about any IP complaints. I'm not worried about it if the brand is going to say no more Amazon sellers, because I have a relationship. That's where you want to get to. So yeah, guys, that is pretty much my first year in a nutshell. I have 2 fully exclusive brands, and I am in a semi-exclusive with another brand. And we had our 2 brands that were a complete failure that we tried to launch that I've had to liquidate. And then I have some distributor stuff. I'm working with about 3 or 4 other brands that I'm trying to work towards an exclusive, or at least putting in some test orders. So yeah, I wanted to give you guys an update. And going forward, I'm going to try here and there to start talking a little bit more in depth about my business and what I'm doing and what's working for me. And then some weeks I'm not going to be on here because the past 2 weeks I've been busy and I've had to really concentrate on what is making me money. But I got some killer guests that I am lining up coming on in the next couple weeks, and they are guests that do OA, they do wholesale. We're going to talk about some credit building, some credit repair, and funding, and business funding, because you can't do this business without spending a whole bunch of money. And we're going to talk a little bit about the smartest ways to spend that money and how to stretch it as far as you can. So again, guys, thanks for sitting with me. Doing these podcasts without anybody to react or talk back to you is really difficult and really awkward. But I thank you guys for hanging in with me. If you got questions, feel free to reach out, because I still hop on calls with strangers once a week, because that's how you grow on Amazon. So guys, until next time, my name is John Cutler. This is the Marketplace Mavericks, and we will be back next week.